Hey, yo, top of the morning to the ladies, the gentlemen, the fellas out there. Another 2 games later. I haven't been more excited for a basketball game in a very long time than this Warriors and Lakers. I wish it was just, like I said yesterday, just full-on elimination, so we knew that if the Lakers lost, they were going home, but I'm very excited for this game. The Warriors, the Lakers, LeBron and the Warriors matching up yet again. I'm looking forward to this one. I got the 2 game slate already projected out. It's on Patreon. See all the projections there. Let's smack you around with the top 8 plays on the day right now, and we'll get into it starting right away. Welcome to the channel if you're brand new. Sal Vetcher here. How you doing? How you feeling? Hope you're feeling fantastic. Ready to dominate your day, dominate your competition, and have some fun tonight because we got some actually good games. The number 8 play on the slate for me today is Kelden Johnson, and you probably noticed this right when you opened up the DraftKings pricings for this 2 game slate. What the fuck is happening with the San Antonio Spurs pricing? It's as if all of them are playing 25 minutes today. I'm very confused on why almost every single one of their starters, almost every single one, is $1,000 underpriced. Now, Kelden Johnson doesn't quite fit that build as he's been hovering in the low to mid 4K range for a while now, and I've been completely advocating for you to continue to play Kelden Johnson, and it has not been terrible for you. I mean, 34-point games, and then he's basically averaging around 20 fantasy points, and in a lot of those games where he's only getting 20 fantasy points, it's because he's not getting his full run. Against Phoenix last time out, he left the game early, only played 22 minutes. Game before that, it's a blowout, he only plays 25 minutes. Game before that, he actually gets his run and he scores 21 fantasy points. Okay. Not the greatest fantasy point per minute producer. If we want to take a look at what Kelden Johnson is doing and what his team is doing really since the beginning of April 1st, we can slide over to add more funds. It's a free data site link below if you want to check it out. And what Kelden Johnson is doing and playing the second most minutes on his team during that time, and his fantasy point per minute production is actually dropping. The more that he's playing alongside DeJounte Murray, Jakob and Demar Derozan, he's actually becoming less efficient of a player. He's only averaging right now a 33% three-point rate, and he goes from a 0.86 fantasy point per minute producer to 0.8. But I'm projecting him for a 0.8 fantasy point per minute production today. I'm giving him 28 minutes of play, which is arguably a minute or two too high, but keep in mind we're now in the motherfucking postseason, so I'm expecting bigger usage for these guys. I'm expecting bigger usage for the starters and the guys who have normally been out there, and Kelden Johnson has been out there the second most over the last 6 weeks for this team. So Kelden Johnson, for me, if I give him 28 minutes today at around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute producer like you're seeing on the screen on the YouTube version, shout out to podcast people as well, how those earballs doing, Kelden Johnson grades out for me for 22.59 fantasy points. Now, I'll be honest. I have 7 guys as yeses early on this slate. Kelden Johnson is not one of them. He is the only guy on this list of 8 players that you're going to see today that is not one of those yeses. But Kelden Johnson is in play for me. Guys who just miss out on this top 8 list. So your honorable mentions. Kelden Johnson's number 8. Andrew Wiggins 9, Kevon Looney 10, and then in my player pool right now I have 25 players. That full player pool is on Patreon. It's linked down below. You go grab it, you could you could buy, and bam. You're having a good damn time today on this marvelous Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for being here as we celebrate a couple of national calendar days that I have no idea what they are, to be honest with you. I don't know what May Ray Day is. I'm going to be completely honest. Hopefully that's not offending anybody out there. National Devil's Food Cake Day, no idea. National Juice Slushy Day, I can see what that is, but all these days suck. National Emergency Medical Services for Children. That sounds terrible. Don't want to be celebrating that today. So yeah, not that much stuff to celebrate, so let's celebrate the Warriors and the Lakers. Thank you all for being here. Like, subscribe, do those things, and also hit the notification bell. We will be live later today for the hour up until the game start, taking your questions, building lineups on the Big Energy Optimizer, and a whole bunch of other stuff, discussing any late news that might break, which today it doesn't seem like there's many injuries outside of maybe just Grayson Allen with a questionable tag on him as of right now. I'll also be live around 1 p.m. East Coast time today for golf, the PGA Championship, the second major of the year. We have 2 pieces of golf content out so far this week. Be sure to check those out, and I'll be live answering your questions. I'm very excited for the golf event this week as we're now back in the golf streets here in the studio in the great state of Texas, finally been able to get here. How y'all doing? So as we get back into it, the number 7 play on the slate today grades out for me for 38.53 fantasy points. Was already playing massive minutes to close the season out, and that is going to be Draymond Green, who you can get creative and put in the center spot in a lot of your lineups today, but a power forward eligible player. His team is implied for 107 points today as the underdogs against the Lakers trying to continue their season here. Draymond Green in an elimination game, he's played 37, 37, and 38 minutes over the final 3 games of the season. He has now scored 40 or more fantasy points in 4 straight games. I don't think he's going to be scoring 40 points today, but he's close to it. 38.5 fantasy points for me at a 37-minute projection for Draymond Green. If we want to look at what Draymond Green is doing since the beginning of April, over the last 6 weeks or so where he has actually remained healthy, he's playing the 3rd most minutes on this team. This is going to be showing a nice sample with no Kelly Oubre as well. You can see that he plays the 3rd most minutes on the team behind Andrew Wiggins and Steph Curry. And Draymond Green is averaging a very impressive 1.3 fantasy points per minute. That is what that number is right here. Now, for reference, on the season, he's been averaging a little bit over 1 fantasy point per minute. So it's increasing dramatically. dramatically. Now, his assist percentage has always been fantastic. 35% assist percentage is well more than Stephen Curry's 25%. We know that that's been good. It really comes down lately to what Draymond Green is doing from an actual shot standpoint. Draymond Green, over the last couple of games and weeks, is taking shots again. Earlier, like a month or 2 months ago, he was only shooting like 2, 3, maybe 4 times a game. That was when Kelly Oubre was out there. Now, he's going out there and threatening double-double and triple-double almost every single night. He's shooting 7, 10, and 8. And that might not sound like a lot of shot attempts, but it is when you also take into account that he's getting to the free throw line about 3 or 4 times a game. So now if Draymond Green's just able to score 10 points like he has each of the last 4 games, scoring 11 or more points, his double-double upside is there because the assist percentage is just guaranteeing him assists. 9, 11, 10, 13, 9 assists over his last 4 games alone. If you go back further, you're going to see a bunch of games with double-digit assists, and then he's getting right around your 8 to 10 rebounds a game. So Draymond Green with real double-double upside, real triple-double upside, and if anything, an increased floor to his minutes now that the postseason is here. I don't think Draymond Green plays less than 36 minutes today, as long as he's healthy, game stays close, no foul trouble. I have him at 37. There's a real chance he could play 38 to 40 since he was doing that right at the end of the regular season anyways. So number 7 play in the slate for me today is going to be 1, Draymond Green. If we slide right into the number 6 play, it's his teammate Steph Curry. There's not much to say here about Steph Curry. I prefer Steph, spoiler alert today, to the LeBrons and Anthony Davises of the world. I think they're all fine, but they're all $10,000 with not so much value early on right now. So squeezing 2 of those guys into your lineup becomes a little bit difficult. The fact that AD and LeBron play in the same team, take away from each other. Sure, one of them can pop up for 60 points, but more likely that both of them are in kind of that upper 40s range on points, where Steph Curry doesn't have many people to take away from him. Draymond can take away the assists, but outside of that, Steph is getting the shot attempts, especially from three-point land. He's getting his 25% assist percentage. He actually rebounds pretty well for a guard, and what you're getting out of Steph lately is some big overall usage. Steph Curry, for me, grades out for 52.89 fantasy points. That 52.89 fantasy points is the highest projection that I have on the slate by 3 points. He grades out for 3 points more than Anthony Davis and 3.5 points more than LeBron James for me right now. Outside of those 2 players, if you take away the 2 bigs from the Lakers who will cut into each other's minutes and overall production, Steph Curry is projecting out for me for almost 12 more points than anybody else on the slate. He is one of my 7 yeses early on right now, and Steph Curry has played 37, 37, and 40 minutes over his last 3 games. Obviously got the scoring title in that last game, so his 36 shot attempts and 22 threes are a little bit inflated. He scored 46 points, so he can get you there, but the shot attempts will be there. Outside of him just chucking the ball and kind of pushing for that scoring title on the last day of the season, before that game, 22, 25, 26, 21, 31, 26, 23, right? You can expect Steph Curry to take easily 20 shot attempts and right around 25 shot attempts in this game, unless he goes absolutely cold, which is something that he has done in the postseason, but unless he goes absolutely cold, and even if he could just shoot 40%, you're probably looking at Steph Curry pushing towards over 50 fantasy points today, which is not something you can say for about 95% of the rest of the players on this slate today. So Mr. Stephen Curry, dollar bills, cash money, 30 racks on my wrist, Steph Curry is going to be the number 6 play in the day. Before we get into the number 5 play in the day and the top 5 plays in the day, hey, the reason that the show is able to happen, the reason that we're able to set up a nice scenery behind me and move to Texas and have all these lights on me still and afford this nice little shirt that we got on right here. Don't worry, I got it from like H&M. It was very dirt cheap. It looks nicer though than it actually is, but hey, it's pretty motherfucking affordable. I ain't trying to blow some racks on some Balenciaga. I don't even know what the fuck Balenciaga is. That might be like a car company. I assume it's clothing, perfume. I don't know what the fuck. I'm out of my element right now. I'm going to be honest with you. But before we get into that, the sponsor of the program today, and I'm going to be honest with you, yesterday fucking sucked. Yesterday sucked on the prize pick streets where you can take the over-under on props, on fantasy points, and the reason why was we took the props early in the day. We took the correct props early in the day until the bombshell news came that Karis LeVert was going to miss the game. That kind of came out of nowhere. The second Karis LeVert's going to miss the game. The Doug McDermott under doesn't look good anymore. The Malcolm Brogdon over, the second that he's on a minutes limit of 4 to 5 minute stints or 5 to 6 minute stints, the over 36 doesn't look good. So those both go womp, womp, womp. 2 of my 4 favorite ones early in the day don't get us there because of the motherfucking injury news that for the most part with Karis LeVert came out of nowhere. So yeah, your boy ended up losing the Dollaruskis yesterday, and I'm not happy with it. And I'm sure some people out there aren't happy with it either. We were a victim to the injury news in the postseason, which is not something that normally happens often, but with this wonky season, it is going to happen. But you take the over-under on fantasy points, and I would encourage you to try it out. It's a really nice way to just get different and have a different sweat, having to focus on just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 at most players instead of having to focus on an entire lineup and getting every single thing right. Now, that is fun. Trying to hit those lotteries and the big GPPs is fun, right? Trying to win the single entry 3 max, all that stuff on DFS is fun. DraftKings, I play predominantly. But prize picks is something that this community has really taken over the last 3 months or so. Now, there's 4 props early in the day that do stand out to me. Ja Moran over 35 is probably the one that stands out the most. Ja Moran is going to play 35 plus minutes today. He's well over a fantasy point per minute producer. He's in a matchup against San Antonio that is going to be a very fine matchup. mean, if anything, there's no Derek White out there who would be maybe the only defensive force that could stop him. I don't think Demar Derozan is going to do that much at his age at this point for John Morant. So John Morant, for me right now, I have projecting out for 41.58 fantasy points. That's a 6.5 point difference. If anything, the only injury news today is Grayson Allen. If Grayson Allen misses, if anything, it doesn't really change John Morant, I'll be honest with you, but it doesn't hurt him like yesterday with some of this Brogdon news. So give me the over on John Morant. That's my favorite prop early in the day. I think that this gets up to at least 36 and arguably probably 38 by the end of the day. So be sure to get in on that one. Jaren Jackson Jr. over 30. I don't like it as much, but I have Jaren Jackson Jr. for around 32 fantasy points today, and that might be under projecting him because I'm only giving him 30 minutes of play when he could easily play 32 or 33. Draymond Green, we just talked about. I got Draymond Green for about 38.5 fantasy points. Again, might be under projecting him because I'm only giving him 37 minutes, where if he plays 38 to 40, this number quickly becomes 40 fantasy points. I think Draymond Green's under gets up to 38. And LeBron over 46. I have LeBron, who's a really good steals and blocks player, right, especially for the position. I've got him about 49.5 fantasy points today. So I would rank my interest early on as John Morant 1, LeBron 2, Draymond 3, and Jaren Jackson Jr. for today. Again, use that promo code SAL, S-A-L. There's a link in the description below. You try it out. You take some of these. I would encourage you to take the over on John Morant 35, the over on LeBron 46. You pair those together. You win some dollar riskies. Use the code SAL. Whatever money you put in, they'll double your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in $25, you just want to try it out. Now you got 50 motherfucking racks because they said, hey, you came from Mr. Salvatore Vetri and you said, yeah, I did. Here's some dollar riskies. Oh, you want to put 50 in? Okay, bam. You got a $100 bill right in your motherfucking hand. I don't know what it is. Is that a Benji? I don't even know what the fuck that is, but there you go. It's a Benjamin in your hand. Hopefully that's a $100 bill. The number 5 play on the slate today is going to be 1, Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas Valanciunas is the man on this. Oh my God, I'm getting a little hot and sweaty. Jonas Valanciunas, right? Enes Kanter when he gets his minutes. Robert Williams when we know he's getting 28 to 30 minutes. Oh, these centers who are absolute freaks of nature size-wise and are great point per minute producers. Jonas Valanciunas is a 1.3 fantasy point per minute producer on my model right now. Jonas Valanciunas has the highest team implied total on the slate at 113.25, and he's playing bigger minutes. The postseason is here. I'm only giving Jonas Valanciunas 30 minutes today. Lately and towards the end of the regular season, he was playing 31, 32 pretty frequently. Even if you give him 28 minutes today, he looks pretty good. Jonas Valanciunas today at just $7,600 is my 5th highest projected player. He's also the 5th most expensive player at 40.71 fantasy points. He looks like a yes over on SuperDraft, one of only 4 yeses over there. He's a yes over on DraftKings. Here's the thing with Jonas Valanciunas. It just comes down to the minutes and potentially the matchup because he's a freak size-wise, but the defense can be an issue. He's getting Jakob Poeltl, maybe some Drew Eubanks, and some Rudy Gay down low, right? And some Lonnie Walker down low potentially. It's not going to Kelden Johnson down low. It's not going to be an issue for Jonas Valanciunas. Quite simply, 1.3 fantasy points per minute times 28 to 30 minutes a player. So it's going to project out Jonas Valanciunas for me today for right around 40 fantasy points, which is going to be something that you can't say for many guys in this slate. He is one of 5 guys projected for 40 more fantasy points, and he is the cheapest of those guys. Jonas Valanciunas looks absolutely fantastic today. He's the number 5 play in the slate, and we'll get into the number 4 play in the slate right now, who is somebody that we have interest in, right? Somebody that we have interest in. We just talked about him on Prize Picks as our 4th favorite prop today. Jaren Jackson Jr. on that same exact team with the team implied total as Jonas Valanciunas. He is averaging a ton of fantasy points this year, but some of those are without John Moran and Jonas Valanciunas on the court. So I'm not giving him his 1.22 fantasy points per minute. I'm going to give him around, if we date back to last year with Jonas Valanciunas on the court, he averages around a fantasy point per minute. I'm going to give him a little bit more than that because I think it's somewhat of a skewed sample. I gave him 1.05 fantasy points per minute today. And as it stands right now, I only gave him 28 minutes of play. And that could be something that is definitely not correct on my end. But if any, the way that I view this is I already like him a lot. If we under project him, it can only get better for us because lately he's been playing. He played 31 minutes in the last game of the regular season on May 16th. He scores 36 fantasy points against Golden State. Looks real good. But before that, it was 20, 27, 26, 25. He was on this minutes limit, right? And then it kind of came off in the last game of the regular season, which shows us that he can easily play 30 plus minutes. But we don't have a strong enough sample to think that it's going to happen night in and night out. The matchups are going to be fantastic. It's an undersized and older San Antonio team down low with Rudy Gay, but an undersized team when you have Lonnie Walker and Kelden Johnson filling the rest of those power forward minutes in the postseason. Jaren Jackson Jr. for me today projects out for 31.75 fantasy points, and he is one of my 7 yeses. And again, he is potentially under projected. If I give Jaren Jackson Jr. today 30 minutes of play instead of 28, he projects out as my 2nd overall play on the slate for about 34 fantasy points. And obviously his Prize Picks number gets only better for you. Getting into the number 3 play in the slate right now, before we get into these top 3 plays, I just want to let you know about Patreon. There's projections over there. There's rankings. There's ownership for some sports. Top player pools. You can see all these guys I'm referencing that are yeses, that are maybes, that are in my player pools, where they rank. So not only the top 8 here, but those are going to be updated throughout the day for the entire NBA playoffs. We have PGA content, MMA content, MLB content, meaning projections, not just content like, oh, pick this guy. No, it's projections. It's actual data and analytics to reduce your research time increase your chances of winning. You get to join a nice community in the Discord. Check it all out down below. It's a bunch of tools that is supposed to power your DFS and sports betting games. I create them all on my end, provide them to you so that you can enjoy your time with your family, your friends, yourself, whatever it might be, not have to be sitting at home trying to crunch numbers and get an actual feel for it, right? If you're just going in there and blind choosing some guys, or if you're watching content, that's one thing, right? You're getting a little bit above the average. But when you're watching content and you have the tools to go along with it, you got that jetpack on and you're flying fucking up the leaderboards, let me tell you right now. Check it out down below. Appreciate all the 400 plus, 450 plus around there or so now patrons in that motherfucking community and in the Discord. The number 3 play in the slate is going to be one Jakob Poeltl. This is the guy, right? This is one of the guys. I talked about all these starters from San Antonio just being underpriced. Jakob Poeltl is $4,900. This is a starting center who at the very least is going to be playing 26 minutes today, but there's very much a chance that he plays 28 to 30 minutes. Jakob Poeltl to end the season played 30, 34, 28, 34, 28 minutes, 35. I can keep going, right? He plays big minutes. So to give him his season average of 26 or 27 would be incorrect. I gave him the bare minimum because his price point is so cheap. I gave him 28 minutes of play today. If he starts, I think that's the bare minimum that he sees. And even giving him 28 minutes of play, he's still the number 3 play in the slate. He projects out for me because he's a fantasy point per minute producer for 27.41 fantasy points. If I give him 30 minutes of play today, Jakob Poeltl will project out for me for 29.8 fantasy points and be the number 1 play in the day. Now, I mentioned that the center eligible only guys such as Jonas Valanciunas or some of the other guys are like Kevon Looney and Andre Drummond. Obviously, Jakob Poeltl, I didn't want to spoil the secret. He would be the number 1 center eligible only guy. So if you're looking at what to do with your utility spot today in a cash game setting or small field single entry and 3 max, or even in any type of contest, just get different elsewhere, Jakob Poeltl and Jonas Valanciunas to fill your center and your utility spot makes a lot of sense to me. Jakob Poeltl only gets better if he plays a couple more minutes tonight. The matchup against Jonas Valanciunas is not the best one for sure, but I don't think that they're going to get a better matchup with Drew Eubanks off the bench. Jakob Poeltl is going to have to be slotted into minutes. The fact that he is this damn cheap is very shocking to me, I should say. And these next 2 guys who I have interest in, right? So he's the number 3 play. These next 2 guys are on his team. Spoiler alert. The number 2 play on the slate today is Demar Derozan. Demar Derozan, who has been constantly an $8,000 or $7,900 player, has now dropped to $7,000 flats. And he fills this small forward shot, which is such a weak position. It is hard not to like Demar Derozan. It's so easy to build a cash lineup today, and you're probably going to duplicate it with so many people. That's why I don't play cash, but it's just so fucking easy with how cheap all these guys are. Now, I will admit that Demar Derozan went down to $7,100, which was weird. He dropped $700 overnight after scoring 44 fantasy points on May 13th. On May 16th, he drops down to $7,100, and he just goes out there, he doesn't play well, he scores 32.5 fantasy points. But now DeMar DeRozan in the postseason, where, look, during the end of the regular season, maybe he was playing 30 minutes a game because every game the Spurs played in, they either got blown out or they were doing the blowing out. Over those last 2 weeks of the season, there was rarely one game that ended up staying close, like the final couple of games of the season when a bunch of guys were already ruled out on the team. But now you have the postseason, and it's going to be hard to see DeMar DeRozan at least not play his season average of 34 minutes per game. I gave him 35 minutes in this game. He is over a fantasy point per minute producer. If we want to look at what he's doing since the beginning of April, since April 1st, he leads this team in minutes, and he averages right around a season average of 1.16 fantasy points per minute, a 29% assist percentage, a 28% usage rate. Everything is clicking for DeMar DeRozan. So with this price point dropping, that you would probably think, oh, something's wrong with DeRozan. Oh, he's averaging a lot worse points over the last month of the season. No, if anything, is actually increasing slightly. So DeMar DeRozan at 36 minutes of play, if I just give him 1.1 fantasy points per minute today, he starts to project out for 39.54 fantasy points and my number 2 overall play on the slate today. Now, DeRozan is number 2, Poeltl's number 3, and the number 1 play on the slate is also like, subscribe as we get into this one. We'll be live again later today for the final hour until these games lock. So be sure to hit the notification bell so you know when we're doing that. We'll also be live in the afternoon for the golf content coming out tomorrow. So the number 1 play in the slate. This is another guy whose price point has dropped by at least $500 and arguably $1,000 on the San Antonio Spurs team. I opened up the slate today and I was like, what the fuck is going on? One, it's the postseason, right? So the minutes are automatically coming up, but for some reason the prices are plummeting dramatically. Did I miss something that they're going to, in a playing game for the postseason, they're going to be sitting their starters or playing them half the minutes? I don't think I missed that. So I think DraftKings fucked up something here. But DeJounte Murray is $6,300 today, and he's the number 1 play in the slate. DeJounte Murray, again, if we just look at the same exact samples that we've been looking at for Jakob Poeltl and DeMar DeRozan since just April 1st, DeJounte Murray, 3rd most minutes on the team. It's a lot, 754, 1 minute behind Kelden Johnson for the 2nd most on the team. He's averaging basically a season average of 1.11 fantasy points per minute, a 25% assist percentage, a 23% usage rate. Everything is clicking for DeJounte Murray. The only thing is his games usually don't stay close and they get absolutely blown out, similar to DeMar DeRozan, so you don't get those final 6 or 7 minutes in the game in the 4th quarter. They don't get their 4th quarter run. But DeJounte Murray has played now 30 or more minutes in 4 straight games, and in those games he scored 40 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. DeJounte Murray has dropped $1,000 in pricing over the last 4 games, and in 3 of those 4 games, like I said, he scored 40 or more fantasy points. The only game he didn't was when he shot 30% against Philadelphia, but he played 30 minutes of play. So I'm giving DeJounte Murray 1.1 fantasy points per minute. I'm giving DeJounte Murray potentially less minutes than he's actually going to play today, 33, right? When I think in the postseason, there's a real chance he plays 34 to 36, and he grades out as my number 1 play. He can play even more minutes today, and then it'll look even better for DeJounte Murray. I have DeJounte Murray for 36.68 fantasy points at 33 minutes of play, making him the number 1 play on the slate for your boy. So thank you for tuning in today to the top 8 video. Again, we'll be updating these projections throughout the day. I'll be answering any questions in the Patreon Discord or in the comments down below. If you have any, you can drop them there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy your coffee today. Enjoy everything you have going on this lovely Wednesday. Not that many great national calendar days, but the Warriors versus the Lakers tonight. I'm actually excited for this game. I'll see you in the live stream later today for both golf and the NBA. Be sure to support the sponsor of the program today. Take that over 35 on Moran, over on Prize Picks, and the over 46 on LeBron James. Some other options we gave you earlier. When you use the code SAL when you sign up, any money you put in, they'll double it up to your first $100. Peace out, gang. I'll see you in the next one. I appreciate you all more than you motherfucking know. Enjoy your day. Make the most out of it.